Okay, here we go. Day 40. There's some activity on the roof. I'm going to show you in just a moment. Yep. And we're going to begin in just a couple moments, as a matter of fact. But I wish I had an update for you. I am going to be doing another update on some of these FBI theories that are at least comes from what the FBI believes. Let me just double check. I think our sound should be fine. And I think it is. Yep, nice and clear. We're also going to speak with attorney Stephanie Murphy coming up, go through some of the legal aspects. And there's a lot of talk also. There's several things. One is, and I want to give credit, it was Megyn Kelly. A lot of people, I think, have seen this, but it was a Today Show episode where they actually, I mean, now it's like eerie to watch, where they show Nancy Guthrie, and there's quite a bit of workers here at the house. But they did a segment where they show Nancy Guthrie, and she is in her bedroom. So that, and it's very eerie. I'm going to show you some of that in just a moment. You don't need, they show her like, I'm not sure exactly. I think the nature of the segment was about, she was like making her bed, and they were actually showing her and filming her making her bed. And she's here at the bedroom at the house. And then Savannah is back in New York at the studio. But it's definitely a little eerie for those that it is out there. But there's another video of drones that were shot, I think either day 1 or day 2 of the house. So again, it was Megyn Kelly found the footage of Nancy doing this segment with the Today Show. It's kind of interesting to me that NBC didn't have that, but anyhow, but they have it. And when you see the segment, it is I'll just show you some of the video. It's just kind of jarring because it gives us a sense, and I'll walk over there. I've been focusing on the left side. I even did some videos for those that are tuning in. I did some videos where I say that, to me, that is the vulnerable side of the home. That if you were going to look at the home, and Pete says good to go, and it's pretty jarring, just because. But there's two things I do want to show. We're in no rush. We're going to be joined by attorney Stephanie Murphy. For those that don't know her, she is great, and she'll also, we're going to break out some of the talk about some of the local issues. But let me just, nope, that's not it. Hold on, I have it. I have some screenshots of it. Suddenly now I was watching it, and then just as we're live now, but, and more people, by the way, are picking up on it. More people are picking up on it. It was a 2013 segment. I'm just going, you don't need the audio, but that's Nancy Guthrie in her bedroom. And she did a segment. That's Megyn Kelly, the one that I'm seeing was the first one to post it. But it was the segment they did where she's like demonstrating for Savannah and the others at the today's show how she makes her bed, and with the corners, and it's here it is, and it's just anyhow. So that's her in the bedroom right there, and then we know, that's the left side of the house. What I also want to just show, which I think is really interesting, and again, it is day 40, is, and I want to give it was my friend Jennifer Coffendorfer. She found, and I was just talking to one of the local TV reporters, and he didn't seem to know what I was talking about, but I'm pretty sure it was his video, and I'm going to show it right now for those that are watching. And again, we're on Facebook, so it does. You don't need the sound here, but I want you to just. This is the first time I've seen this, and that is, as I describe it, that's the left side of the house. And what I think is really interesting, I've been focusing on the sliding glass doors, which I'm going to walk over, and it's on the other side. Look at those two investigators out there, and the amount of attention that they are. Hey, hold on, bro. All right, do your thing. Good luck. So see this, so there's sliding glass doors on both sides. On both sides. Now see, those are two investigators. I believe this is either day one or day two. I had not seen this before, but again, like once you come on and then you're like get onto the ground and look at them, that's a good shot. You see, there's the sliding glass doors. They go into, that's the bedroom right there, and then that's the other sliding glass doors, and then that's the. It also showed them in the back. So I'm going to show you exactly where they were because I find that very interesting. So it's day 40. A lot of people have vacated, which I understand because there is other news. I'm going to walk down. We're going to be live on the radio in just about 4 minutes. And then you can see there is, this is her home, and they're having a lot of work done. And I can see them up on the roof, but they're just workers. There's Mr. JLR. We're going to check in with him a little bit later. Folks, he's always right here. How are you, John? I'm good. I'm good on this day 40. But I do want to show you for those that are watching. So when I just showed you the drone, and I've been drilling down and focusing on this left side right there. So you see it depends on, I think the camera's inverted, but that also, and we can't really see it here, but because of the drone, you could see that there's not only sliding glass doors straight ahead, we believe, to the bedroom, but there's also sliding glass doors, which will lead to whatever room that is, maybe a living room right here. And then there is a very easy way to get in over there. So, but the Megyn Kelly, her finding that Today Show piece, and again, you can see the workmen on the roof here at the home of Nancy Guthrie, where it is day 40. And we're going to start in just one moment. And, oh, good. And we're live on Facebook and we're live on YouTube. Oh, good. And I want to thank Zully G8540. Thank you for all your support on YouTube. Now, I want to just double check because we are going to speak with attorney, as I say, attorney Stephanie Murphy. Yep, coming up in just a moment. And we're going to start. I think those pieces are interesting. And we are going to begin at 6 minutes past the hour on this Thursday, March 12th, day 40. And the shot you're looking at, this remains the home of Nancy Guthrie. You can see some workmen up on the roof. Now, it can't be ignored that a lot of the media has left, admittedly. I'm starting to look at flights. I admit that. But for right now, the investigation is ongoing, and we're everybody's looking for a break, but we're certainly just learning more. I think it's interesting about the dynamics of the house. This portion of our program, folks, and right now we're live on Facebook, we're live on YouTube, we're live on X, and we're also live on AM 1380, 99.9 FM. And you can always listen online at our website, depetro.com. This portion of the program, if you check out the website, depetro.com, which by the way has links to all of our social media, and it is brought to you by the Coesit Inn, 226 Coesit Avenue in West Warwick. Remember what we say: lunch, dinner, drinks in the lounge. They also have coffee at Coesit. I am anxious to have a good meal at the Coesit Inn when I return. Plus, you have St. Patrick's Day coming up, always a big celebration. But folks, what I like and you're going to love about the Coesit Inn is there's plenty of room to spread out and enjoy a great meal. And they can also accommodate groups of 30 people. They can accommodate groups of 50 people. They could accommodate a group of 100 people. Perfect for if you're getting a group of people together, maybe even last minute, or maybe you are having, a reunion, or you want to watch March Madness. There's plenty of room to spread out. You're going to love it at the Coesit Inn. And also, this portion of our program, all this talk about the high price of oil, you wouldn't have to worry about that if you had propane. Propane Plus, always online at propaneplus.com, serving Rhode Island and Massachusetts. It's the Johnson family. You can depend on propane. It's a great source of energy. I also noticed, like in this part of the country, in Tucson, a lot of people, in the Northeast, they're pretty heavy on um, on oil. But I was noticing that someone was showing me a new development around here, and the entire development, every home they're going to be fueled by propane. So, folks, propane and always online at propaneplus.com. So, again, now for those that are watching, you are seeing those are some workmen here at the home of Nancy Guthrie. It is day 40. I've been trying to communicate with the sheriff. They just don't have an update. And admittedly, I'm going to talk about it a little bit and even give an analogy. I know some people, by the way, there's a lot of focus right now online of people that are breaking out some of the pictures of that intruder that was on the porch. And some people are breaking out and they see a tattoo there. And I mean, people are still examining different parts of the case. I know Nancy Grace has been big on that. That drone footage that I showed just a few moments ago, and it was Jennifer Coffindaffer. We've had her on the show, former FBI, that she was the one that found that. Now, that was shot, I think, the first or second day. And what I found interesting about that is, once again, it's where the focal point is. They are focused on, and for those that are watching, and I'll show you again, but that drone, they are focused right there. And I didn't even know that. I've been staring at this house, for those that are watching, for 40 days now, well, pretty much 40 days, and did arrive here the first week. But I've always thought, as I look at the home, and I do have video up on Facebook and TikTok. I think it's on YouTube as well. But anyhow, I just break out that, to me, for those that are watching, that is the vulnerable area. Now, I know that, we see the intruder at the front door, and some people view that as that he, in fact, entered through the front door. But admittedly, I've just never thought that the individual um, came entering the home. They definitely seemingly exited the home that way, but I've just never been under the opinion that that's actually how the person got in. So, all right, folks, now joining us. Now, remember, there's many times you may not realize that you're going to need an attorney. And when that happens, I know who I'd call, and she's available 24/7. And it is, in fact, attorney Stephanie Murphy. And it could be a friend. I sometimes get a message over the course of a weekend of it's a family member and they say that they have someone, a brother or a cousin, or maybe sometimes even a coworker, and they need some legal advice. That is who now is in fact attorney Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, I'd like to just start off with any thoughts you have before we're going to talk about some of the local legal issues that are in the news, but any thoughts you have on the Guthrie case. As of right now, the media has definitely, peeled off. When I was first talking to you, the street was lined. And I'm just curious your thought on what that can do to an investigation. The more the time goes by, even if they were to bring in a suspect, this is a long time that they've been working on this.
Hey, sorry, John, I lost you for a second. Am I back?
Yeah, just your thoughts you are on the Guthrie case, and the longer that this goes on, this can be potentially what I was going to say was a tougher case to prove for prosecutors, just because there's clearly no eyewitness and so much time has gone by.
Right. No, you're absolutely right, John. In terms of evidence, in terms of charges, a person, everything like that, the more time that goes on, it is harder. But, if there is evidence or there is someone coming forward with information, that's always helpful that, if it's reliable, that law enforcement can always move forward. But you're right. The more time that goes by, the harder it is for, evidence to be preserved and everything like that. But, at the same time, anyone with any information, stuff like that, any information is very helpful and can absolutely help in resolving this case.
I want to roll through a couple of legal cases that have been in the news. And one of them was this man in Newport, and he was posting things. I don't think we had seen something like this in a while. I don't believe he wasn't threatening anyone in person, but he was posting things on social media. You and I have talked about sometimes people got to be careful on social media, but they actually went and raided his house, the state police, and then they took him into custody, and he did have a lot of weapons. Just the legal aspect of that, of it wasn't someone saying, there was a road rage incident or this guy came into my parking lot, whatever. This was them doing this seemingly all off of his posts on social media.
Right. From my understanding is they took everything he was saying and social media posts, Facebook posts, everything like that. They took that, got a search warrant for his, for his property and stuff like that, executed the search warrant. And then they found what they were looking for. And they possibly could have found a lot more than they thought too. So in that situation, once the search warrant's signed and, they're free to go in and look for the items contained in the search warrant. And then if they find other items, they can also go back and get additional search warrants to continue to search other items and stuff like that. So you have to be careful what you post, even what you say to people. It doesn't have to be written somewhere. It could be a conversation that you have with somebody that, a judge can sign off on a search warrant, and that can lead to a bunch of different things in terms of, what they're looking for, other charges. You kind of go down a rabbit hole at that point. That's not good.
Some people just on that reached out and said they thought it was unfair, saying, it wasn't the Newport police and he didn't actually threaten anyone in person. But these social media posts, the state police, Stephanie, they seem to feel they had enough. And when they went in, he wasn't bluffing. He did, in fact, have weapons.
I mean, I think there could be a legal challenge to it. My defense mind turns on in terms of, what I could file to suppress a search warrant, suppress what they find. So there can definitely be legal grounds. But I always like to take the position as if I can help my client not start to get in trouble, then that's a route I want to go. So my advice to people is maybe there is enough for a warrant, maybe there's not enough, but the police come in, they seize everything. If they find what they're looking for, it's a little bit harder for me to do my job and suppress a search warrant. But you can always file something, but I'd rather be proactive, not have the police come into my client's house with a search warrant. So I just warn people, and I tell people all the time, be careful what you say, be careful what you write, and be careful of what you post.
Now, there was an incident at Bally's Casino, and there was a fight, and then the person was charged with a stabbing. Someone somehow very distantly connected was asking me, and I think again, it's a question from someone, but if someone was in the verge of going to be attacked, if there was going to be a fight, what would be the predicate that then they could say, I was just defending myself? Meaning, what would make it okay that someone's going to attack me and then I say, well, I have a knife, so I was just defending myself?
I think it really depends on the situation and the whatever's going on in that exact situation. I don't think there's one thing I could say in terms of when self-defense is actually can be used and what force can be used. But in a public place, there's more of a duty to retreat or to get help or something like that than in your own home, of course. So it really depends on where you are, what you're doing. It's also, if you do have a duty to retreat, then that's your first step, to retreat and not escalate it. It's also what force or how much force is needed and stuff like that. So it's really a unique situation where you have to look at that exact situation, the threat that that person feels. If they do have a weapon on them, just because they have a weapon on them doesn't mean that you can use it in self-defense. So a lot of times what happens is a person might get charged with a felony assault or a simple assault, and then it's an affirmative defense to then go through and say, yes, that assault may or may not have happened, but it was self-defense. So if you can
That,
avoid the assault, that's the main goal here. But you can
yeah.
always come back on self-defense. And the hardest thing in some of the jury trials I do is making sure you get that self-defense instruction. So a lot of times in order to do that, you have to think about the entire case, and you might have to put your client on the stand. And that can be really, really risky. So self-defense is an affirmative defense. So you have to kind of basically earn it in order to get instructed on it. And there's some risks in going down that road. So, I mean, I would love to win an assault charge, right after the state's case. But a lot of times I have to present evidence of self-defense in order to get that instruction.
Now, you and I talk so many stories now, and it is to me kind of new in recent years, and that is this video voyeurism. And now we have another case out of URI. I have a couple questions about that. Number one, what if someone was saying, "Oh, it was really just a prank," where apparently someone was hiding a camera or filming people in the showers? And number two, someone did ask me, what exactly is the penalty for if in fact, regardless of whether the motive was, but what is the penalty for someone who got caught with this video voyeurism?
So video voyeurism is a felony charge, so it carries at least 1 year in jail. Doesn't mean mandatory jail, but it is a felony charge. In terms of people saying it's a prank or a joke or stuff like that, I mean, that's more of a mitigation factor than it is, a defense to it and stuff like that. So, I have 4 kids and I tell them all the time, you need to be careful of the pranks you play and the jokes you play and stuff like that, because there's real consequences to your actions and stuff like that. So it is a very serious charge. The joking or, the prank part of it could come into play, but it's not going to dismiss the case because it was a prank. That's for sure.
Now, this other legal case regarding this Richmond man, 24 counts of animal cruelty. What is the penalty on something like that? And how is it defined? Because we do hear, occasionally I'll hear from people that say that it was a neighbor that called about a dog. In this case, it seemed to be a little more extensive number of animals. But what about the legal aspect of animal cruelty?
So there's actually a lot of laws on the books in Rhode Island for animals, animal cruelty, feeding malnourished. There's a lot of different laws on the books where you could be charged with. Most of them are all felony charges in all honesty. So it's taken very serious. So it also depends on kind of what you knew, the control you had over the animals, what you did to kind of mitigate any sickness and stuff like that. But some of these animal cruelty cases get the most protests and the most outcry from the public. So a lot of times when I'm in Kent County, if there's an animal cruelty case going on, there's a lot of people outside protesting and stuff like that. So they're taken very seriously. Most of them are felony charges, and with multiple counts, you're facing some very severe penalties. In all honesty.
Now, the next story, this is something we're seeing across the country, and I've already heard from 2 parents on this. But Woonsocket High School, they're planning on locking away cell phones. They feel that that's really one of the reasons why they've had so much violence. But I'm already hearing from parents saying, well, my child gets anxious, and the way that I calm them down is we communicate during the day. What about, we're hearing about some of these bans in schools where this children can't have cell phones?
Well, I think a lot of schools already have it, in all honesty. I know, like, around my office and stuff like that, there is a cell phone ban. There are some accommodations that are made for some students who might need a cell phone for a variety of reasons, whether it's like insulin, medical reasons, and stuff like that. So I know there's a bunch of exceptions. I also know, that, we survived school, when I was in school without cell phones, and there's counselors. There's definitely other ways to communicate and stuff like that. But I think I have not heard of a school that won't make an exception for some different reasons or some other electronic device and stuff like that. So I think if it's an overall ban, there's always room to, argue your case, your individual circumstances, and try to get some sort of an accommodation for your child if it's something that you feel is necessary for your child. And I'm sure the schools are going to listen. I would be very surprised if I just heard that a school took a black and white line on it. So if it's something that, your school's banning and you want to voice your concerns about it, if it is banned, then, talk to your school or talk to your guidance counselor, especially if your child has services, and talk to them about what accommodations can get made to make your child feel comfortable.
Folks, it's time for Murphy's Law. This is a story that attorney Stephanie Murphy has found. And what do you have for us this week, Stephanie?
Yeah, John, I thought of this when you're bringing up the URI and the video voyeurism and stuff like that. So what I'm seeing a lot from my point of view is my client might be a student at one of the universities and they get charged with a criminal crime that occurred kind of outside the school, not on school property. But what most of the schools are doing are they are filing actions within the school as a violation of the student handbook and stuff like that. So I'm just, what I tell my clients is if you are a college student and this concerns anything doing with college, another college student on campus housing, anything like that, they also have to be careful the school taking action too. Most people are really surprised and they're like, oh, it didn't happen, on school grounds. Why is the school getting involved? So something to consider, or vice versa. If the school gets involved first and brings you in for like a hearing, you have to be careful of what you say because that can be used against you for criminal charges. So it's just something to be aware of that could happen. The school could be first and then criminal, or criminal and then school. But I think it's something really important for parents and students to know that there could be a school investigation and a criminal charge.
Folks, again, she is attorney Stephanie Murphy. Stephanie, excellent job as always. Great to talk to you. We'll talk to you
Good
again.
luck out there. Bye.
All right. Thank you, Stephanie. Folks, again, attorney Stephanie Murphy right here on the John DePietro Show. Now, again, just to reset here, and I want to show you, we are in fact right here. We remain on the ground for now. For now, like a lot of everyone, I think in the media is trying to figure out what is the I'd call it, just for lack of a better term, but kind of the jump off point. But there is still, I'll say this about the Guthrie case as I move into the shade. There is still, as many of you know who have been following, tremendous interest in the case. Excuse me. Right now, what you're looking at is these are just some workers that are at the home. And I think the people are kind of I don't want to say demanding, but they're just wondering why isn't there more information about the case? And I want to touch on that. Again, we are also live on Facebook. We are live on YouTube. I want to thank Debbie, who is our fantastic moderator. I want to thank Herdy for the Gertie. Thank you. I know it is a lot of speculation about it. And I'm going to tell you because there's something that I think it hinders a lot of people, including myself, of having a full understanding. Because believe me, I get asked it all the time, what exactly is going on. I think Nancy Grace, uh, I think a lot of the stuff that she's putting out has been really interesting, and people are trying to drill down on this. For those, I'll move in just a moment, but it's we're going to get some hot weather here over the next couple of days. And if our system here overheats, it doesn't do us any good. But I want to remind you about Capitol Fence. I mean, I have people more and more reaching out, and people are realizing it is, we have to deal in reality. It is just, it's a dangerous time. There's some dangerous people out there. And one of the things you have an obligation to protect yourself and protect your family. And one of the ways that you can do that is with Capitol Fence. And owner Mike Rizzo, the guy is just fantastic. And they will set you up with a free quote. It's Capitol Fence. Give them a call today, serving Rhode Island and Massachusetts. Call them at Capitol Fence today. And remember, that can be the difference of someone deciding whether or not they're in fact going to, go into a home or keep going by the home. It's Capitol Fence and online at capitalfenceri.com. He also, by the way, they do a great job with social media. And what I like is there with capital fence, you know you're going to be dealing with a top rate company. Again, they're based right in Cranston. And what I really like about a fence is it just sits there. I do notice in being out here in the Catalina foothills, and I'm going to walk in just a moment. So we'll get a view. There's just some workers on the Guthrie home. But what I notice is more people, at the very least, are putting gates up. So maybe you don't want entire fence around your property for whatever reason, or maybe the landscape just doesn't work. But I notice more and more people are putting gates up. So, and I'll demonstrate in just a moment, but call Capital Fence today, owner Mike Rizzo, 401 618 4407, 401 618 4407 for Capital Fence. So, and I want to show you again, we are on the ground here. It is day 40. I think the overwhelming sentiment that so many people just expressed to me is just how sad the story is. And the more that time goes by, so those that are watching on Facebook or YouTube, there we are. You see, there's a lot of work going on the roof. Not exactly sure what that's about. Maybe this was something they had been meaning to do, or maybe it's a security thing. So yesterday we did see the family out. There are people that continue to come out and drop off flowers. So they maybe I don't know exactly, but it's very possible that the home was in need of some electrical work done or some upgrades. So we're not exactly sure, but the vehicles that you see that are there right now, that all has to do with these are not investigators, obviously. These are just some people that are doing work on the home of Nancy Guthrie. And you can hear some drilling back there, but that's what the sound did. But I want to mention, actually, it's a little loud down here, but we'll try it. But I did want to mention, and this, of course, the growing number of flowers, and there were a lot here. But as someone that's been here since Savannah came out, need flowers here with her sister and brother-in-law. To me, that just really kicked it in. It needs a little bit of a lot of those they're unofficial flowers, but it still just remains there as so many people from all over come here and drive here from different parts of the country, even just that they want to see it. So a couple of things. Number one, um, with people, and I think it is good, people like Nancy Grace, they're bringing up and people are sending me images. There's definitely people that are, people may call them amateur sleuths or online sleuths, but, many times that's what can sometimes continue to find evidence. Right now, this is wide open. This investigation remains wide open. But I wanted to touch on what to me could be a frightening development. I remind people that and I've been kind of talking about this a little bit, and maybe I'll look back because it's louder again now. But you have to be careful of people start to zero in on certain people. We still don't know a motive. I mentioned, I did a video, I'm going to do another video today on the FBI. There was an article about different FBI theories, and the FBI top theory still seems to be a robbery gone wrong. And what people need to realize is number one, because I was speaking to a member of law enforcement about this. Number one, we don't know what she had in the house. We actually don't even know if anything was taken out of the home. Sometimes when people break into a home, they're not exactly sure what's inside. Nancy Guthrie, she was 84. And if we want to be realistic about it, it's very possible that she didn't keep a lot of cash in the house. Now, some older people do keep cash in the house. There were some people years ago that still had the depression mentality. There were people literally keeping money under the mattress. So, number one, it's highly possible that she actually didn't have a lot of cash in the house. That's number one. Number two, although now this area, all these homes are $1 million homes, but when they bought the home, this was actually pretty desolate. A neighbor was telling me they believe that the Guthrie family was like the fifth house in. So it's very possible that, maybe some of the newer people that are buying the, 1.2 million, $1.5 million homes, it's very possible they have very expensive items, but it's also at the same time, she may not have had a lot of expensive jewelry. And sometimes as people get older, they then pass heirlooms along down to children or grandchildren. So my point is, just because someone broke in, it doesn't mean that she necessarily had a $50,000 watch or 50,000 in cash or some very expensive diamonds and gold. Um, it's very possible that she, had some nice items inside, but not. I don't think people should read into it that because they broke in, that they knew what they were looking for. Many times when I talk to police and there's a breaking and entering, many times the people that go in, they actually don't know. That's why they're going through the house and they're going through the kitchen drawers and they're going into the bedroom and looking into the sock drawer where a lot of people keep money and so forth. They actually don't know. And it's very different than, like, say, for a home invasion where they're specifically looking for, whether it be, cash or drugs or something of that nature. So the fact that they say it wasn't a robbery is very possible that she didn't have a lot of the items that someone may say, hey, let's steal this and then we'll bring it to, a pawn shop, is what I'm trying to say. Now, I want to talk about, and we're going to move a little bit. Again, this is the front of the home, and everybody essentially has cleared out. JLR is still here. Um, but I know News Nation, I think, is still on the ground, but they're weighing, and I know that Fox is no longer here. So you see, those are the workmen in front of the home, but there's a nice shady spot right there in front of Nancy's home that we're going to settle into. But I want to talk about, a lot of people seem to think that the police need to share everything they have with the public regarding the investigation. And, as so many police have told me, it's really not about that. It's all about, they only care about sharing information that could help them solve the case. And that's it. And the big example that I hear from a lot of people and from media is with the Brian Kohlberger case. They mentioned that a lot. There was no talk. And then all of a sudden, boom, there was an arrest. And so a number of people seem to use that and think of that as that could end up being what happens with this case. I believe that the sheriff here, Sheriff Christanos, that I don't think he does a press conference until he says, early this morning, Pima County detectives put into custody. So I don't think he does. I think in his mind, he's not doing a press conference until he can say, we have made an arrest, which, by the way, may mean that there's never another press conference on this. It would be difficult. It would be difficult to continue to do or try to do the job if, in fact, every time you're trying to talk about a case, if all you're getting is questions about the Guthrie case. But I get the sense that, because even as I've been mentioning, I was even surprised that they haven't done an updated timeline. The timeline that is out there that everyone is still working off is the timeline that was put out on February 5th, that first Thursday. Now, again, we are live on Facebook, we are live on YouTube, I'll be live later on TikTok. I'm gonna do another video on FBI theory. Folks, you can support the show if you're on Facebook. You can start. The YouTube crowd has just been fantastic as we continue to grow all of our platforms. I want to remind you, I did hear from someone where they so much snow melted and it had nowhere to go, and so they had a flood in their basement. They said, "Who is that company that you recommended I call?" I said, "I would call Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. Water damage, storm recovery, fire, mold. Serve Pro of Providence, 401-941-5500. And they're available 24/7, by the way. Excuse me. So if something happened, regardless of what time of day or night, oh my goodness. Sorry, everybody. It's a little bit of the, boy, it does get dry here in the desert. I'll tell you that. It's going to be hot. Um, Next week, it's actually going to be 100. But Serve Pro of Providence, call them 401-941-5500 for Serve Pro of Providence. Now, I want to just check, make sure I'm not missing anything. There's another story about the sheriff, and she's doing some very good reporting about it. Um, but I am also seeing some of the information that's happening as we speak, and that is that FBI Director Kash Patel, FBI personnel on the scene, partners in Michigan, parent vehicle ramming, and an active shooter situation out of a Temple Israel synagogue in West Bloomfield Township, Michigan. Now, Michigan has a huge, especially Dearborn, Michigan, huge Muslim population, and I am seeing it now. And actually, Brian Enton, police were responding to reports of an active shooter at a synagogue outside Detroit. Smoke is billowing from the roof. Reports a truck crashed into the Temple Synagogue. So that clearly is going to take over the headlines. I am seeing this now of a Jewish synagogue in Michigan targeted by an active shooter threat. Major police response. Now, it's a synagogue. We'll see who's behind that. It is certainly a problem with what is going on in the Middle East, in Iran, and with some people that we have in this country. So, but we remain on the ground outside the home of Nancy Guthrie, at least for now, um, because and I do want to touch on one other element about the investigation. The noise you hear are workers that are here at the house, but I am monitoring this situation with the synagogue in Michigan, and I know this is an FBI at Temple Israel Synagogue responding to a parent vehicle ramming active shooter situation. So that's clearly a breaking news situation. But I did want to touch on, and I think that this is important regarding, since we're here in front of the home of Nancy Guthrie, I think I believe that nothing can be ruled out right now. And what I mean by that is I admit that, like a lot of people, there started to become a belief that there were several people that were involved in this. But at the same token, all we see is still that one person, the one person in the mask. That's still the only evidence we have of who it was going into the home. So I think people have to be open-minded that it's very possible that this was a lone wolf attack. And the problem, and I've touched on this a little bit, a problem with the lone wolf is it is, one person can keep a secret. If you have two or more, it becomes more problematic. As far as what's so difficult, and I think some of you need to recognize this, what is so difficult about the investigation is, and if you follow the NFL, I think this might make sense to you. Other people may not get the point I'm trying to make, but With the NFL has the injury report. And the injury report is wildly important because the injury report, number one, it dictates how the teams are going to perform against each other or prepare for each other, is what I should say. But the injury report also essentially decides the line, the betting line, on what is going to be, and that's a big part of sports now. Always has been, but it's the betting line. And so if Drake May of the Patriots, if he has a bad knee and they don't list it, first of all, you have to list on the injury report. The injury report is wildly important. So if you have Drake May and the Patriots are favored by 2.5 over Buffalo, and what the Patriots are hiding is that Drake May actually has a really bad knee. And number one, he may struggle to play. And number two, even if he plays, he's not going to be able to run a lot. If in the NFL, if you can't conceal that. You can't hide that, number one, from the other team. But number two, if Las Vegas, if they found out that he has a bad knee, it's very possible that the Patriots become the 2.5 underdog instead of favored. So, just as an example, with the NFL, the transparency of the league, it's paramount. You can't do that. You can't hide if there's an injury to a player. You have to put who's on the injury report. And a lot of the general public don't pay attention to it, but I assure you that the other teams do, and specifically Las Vegas does. So my point is, you can't hide anything. You're going to put it out. With this investigation, much like a lot of police investigations, they don't share everything. So there are things that if we had all the information, would make sense why you would lean in a certain direction. So, and police purposely do that. They don't care. They put out things to the public that they feel could help them with the investigation. But other than that, they do not share things because if whoever's out there, they don't want to share anything or tip anything off that could potentially help them elude the authorities. And I think that's a very important point. So, with all the speculation, and I know that some people, question why aren't the police telling us more and things like that, because it's not about that. It's not about that. If they felt by putting out certain information that it could help them solve the crime, lead them to who's responsible, that would be entirely different. But otherwise, forget about it. And this sheriff right now, and his feelings towards the FBI, his feelings towards the media. There's another piece out about him today that claims that he was not truthful in court. I don't know if that's accurate, but to me, that just puts him deeper and deeper in the bunker. So my point is, I don't think you can rule out this was a lone wolf. I also don't think, you know, that you can rule out that this was someone that somehow, whoever that is in the mask, maybe they drove in from Nevada. Maybe they drove in from Texas. Maybe they live here in Arizona. Maybe they live in California. Maybe they, live in New Mexico. But whatever reason, they got in their mind that they were going to go after the family. And the way that they were going to go after, I'm not saying it makes sense, but the way that they were going to go after the Guthrie family, whether it was Savannah or husband or whatever, but the way that they were going to go after him is they were going to take the mother out of here. So what was described as a missing person, what was then described as it was definitely a kidnapping situation, an abduction, seems like a violent abduction. But I think that people need to be open to the fact that this could have been someone that just had it in their mind that they were going to go and do this for whatever reason. And I again, I'm not saying it makes sense, right? Like the Unabomber, when you heard he was like against technology and the shit, like it didn't. Of course, it didn't make sense because he was crazy. Luigi Mangione deciding to go to New York to take out Brian Thompson. I mean, there's no legitimate reason for that. They'd never met. There's no bad blood between the two of them. He just got it in his mind that he was going to do that. So I'm very open to that. I mean, where am I right now? I think the more and more that I have been on the ground here, I think we have a good sense of how they got into the house. I don't think it was through the front door. I don't think it was through the front door. That front door could be bolted. I think for the reason they were going to then come out the front door. But and I also I that's why I think the timeline is also confusing. I think the timeline, but they right as of right now, they are not revising the timeline, especially in that timeline that we're all going off. They mentioned the fact that the camera disconnects. Now, to me, that seemingly would coincide with the individual in the mask that we see going up and swatting at the camera. But I also noticed, and this is important, but I've also noticed though, is that the sheriff's office, they don't seem to put out a lot about that masked individual. They don't. They don't put out a lot about that individual. That it was the FBI that found it. It was seemingly the FBI that were really going down that road. So, all right, I am seeing this. Okay, interesting. All right, I'm going to follow up on something. I can see that there is an address. Dad's going live, and they're mentioning that they're going to a certain area in the search for Nancy Guthrie. So that could just be some agents there. I'm not sure. Thank you to Teresa that sent that. That's interesting. We will make our way down there in just a moment, and then I will just a couple moments, and then I will. I want to check it out because I don't know. I mean, Jacob does a good job, so that's where, and I want to see where that is. West River Road. Again, I realize, boy, there's a lot of breaking news right now between the situation of what's going on right now in Michigan. Okay, yeah, we're really close to that. Boy, that would be interesting. Okay, we will check that out, but we'll make our way down there and check out exactly. Actually, I can start to do that, and we'll get a little bit closer. So now, exactly what that is, that could be following up on a lead. I'm not sure, but anytime that they are out, we certainly want to be there. So thank you to Teresa. Folks, again, it would be tremendous if there could be a break in the case, because right now, they've been, as I've said, very tight-lipped, and they have not really offered the sheriff's office. They're not offering anything, as a matter of fact. So I will check that out though. But again, they've kind of been active, and so we'll see exactly what that is and what's going on with it. But as of right now, I'm sorry, and I want to just stay focused here, but we are going to work our way so I could be in a position to go there. I don't know. There's been so many stop and starts. There have been so many situations with this investigation. In the very beginning, when we'd see something, I'd kind of jump on it. I am following the national media right now are all over this Michigan case. And so that's that focus, but I will go in and check that out as well. So a very busy, active news day without question. with what's happening. And again, right now, what's happening here at the home just seems to be some work being done on the Guthrie home. I also want to mention about Annie's car and the fact it hasn't been returned to her yet. And what I do think warrants more of a possible explanation was the decision where they took it apart. It's not as though they just, do you mind if we search the car? It went beyond that. They not only searched the car, but they seemingly took it apart. And what was is not lost on many people is the fact that 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 Luke Daly, they took his Range Rover and gave it back to him before they in fact gave Annie her car back. And I would just question, why is it they felt the need, Annie Guthrie, to take apart the vehicle? That seems very extreme. Was that completely just to be careful about it? What would they be looking for? I think it would be difficult with a vehicle like that, because I think that they easily could say that, if they said that we found Nancy's blood, well, yeah, we were taken to the doctor and she had a nosebleed. And like, I think that would be very difficult to try to say, why did we find Nancy's blood in your vehicle? Folks, this portion of the program brought to you by Kids Club on the Pike. Give them a call today. They're right on the Cranston Johnston line. Call them at 401 443 5336. Kids Club on the Pike. Now remember, Kids Club on the Pike is perfect for a youth celebration, but on top of that, they also have daycare. They also do preschool. They have before and after school care. Kids Club on the Pike. Call Kristen today. They do a great job with social media. 401 443 5336. 401 443 5336 for Kids Club on the Pike. And again, they're right off of 295 on the Cranston Johnston line. It's Kids Club on the Pike. So very active day 40 here. As far as news, I mean, it is frightening to think about that right now in the news is supposedly another active shooter situation, this time in Michigan, and this time targeting a synagogue. So Michigan, especially Dearborn, Michigan, that's where that Rep Talig, whatever her name is, one of the squad members. There's a huge population of Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan. Some people may remember after on 9/11, they were cheering. And suddenly now the FBI is responding. A car rammed into a synagogue, and it's breaking news with smoke billowing out. As far as where we are, this remains very active investigation with the Guthrie case. And what's interesting is it possible that they have an idea of who's involved with this and they're just waiting for the right moment to pounce? Now, again, I am on the ground here. We'll continue to follow. I did notice that Travis is here from News Nation. So News Nation is here on the ground. Just a couple of moments, we're going to be going to check something out where there could be some FBI activity. Many times, like I've learned in the very beginning, we used to jump anytime we heard that the FBI was in motion. But then other times, it's they're following up on a tip, or someone may feel they may have footage, and then it's not in the very beginning. Like everyone would react, and now not so much. Just two other reminders. I want to remind you about Watson Materials. The snow is melting. It's going to be a great spring. Spring is 1 week away. Watson Materials, 401 885 0600. The most complete selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island is Watson Materials. Call them today, 401 885 0600. 401 885 0600. The most complete selection of landscape materials in Rhode Island is Watson Materials. And then obviously, I also want to remind you about the Queen Marie. It's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. Well, that's lunch. Stop in, everything to keep you healthy, you and your family. She has such great local local products as well. Honey, it's My Health, 1099 Mendon Road in Cumberland. So that was Pima County Sheriff just rode by. It'd be very interesting to see today if there is some activity with the Guthrie investigation. That was not the full sheriff vehicle that I've seen in the past. The investigation goes on. I can tell you that I think it's also interesting that the FBI and is still pouring through thousands of videotape, thousands of hours of videotape, and it's very possible that they're going to get a hit on a vehicle. I also want to remind people the FBI and the investigators seemingly remain right in this area. They've never left this area. They've never left this general area. I know that people sometimes feel, why don't you go search here or there? But they have not left this entire area. They continue to be convinced that a clue is around here. And they don't tell us why, by the way, but there could be some cameras that they have available where they feel that they would have been able to detect a vehicle leaving the area, and they just, like a perimeter almost, and they just don't have that. So it is, I think, and I like to tell people, because sometimes people say, why don't you go search here or there? Because it all comes down to, you just follow the police. You follow where the police are. It makes the police, by their activity, both police and FBI, they'll tell you where they think the investigation is going. And so to me, it's all about just following where they go. Because again, I do hear from people that say, has anybody searched this canyon or anybody searched this mountain? Or it's not about that. Remember, the people involved, they go where they know. As far as following and where do you go, you just follow where the police are. The police will lead you right to where they believe that the crime was committed and who committed it. We saw that with, back in December, Brown University, when it was the manhunt, and then suddenly they zeroed in on that storage facility in New Hampshire. So people were saying, the person could be here, the person could be there, but ultimately, nope, that's not where they went. If you followed them, initially they stayed right in the area around Brown University until they realized that the Brown University shooter, that he had a vehicle, he would hide the vehicle so you couldn't see him going in and out of it. And then that's how he jumped into action. If you listen to the radio, stay tuned for the 2 o'clock news. Everybody else, thank you for tuning in. And we will have more updates. Seems to be a very busy Thursday, day 40.